All right then, so this is the first web component which we are going to design, which is a profile card, which this throughout the course we're going to design a multiple profile cards with the different UI structures and layout wireframing. So we're going to build a multiple profile cards. So this is the one which we are going to design for the very first. Okay, so let me keep it on the right side. So all right, and let me create a new project folder, and let's name this as profile-cards, something like that. Then right click it, new terminal, and code space dot, which helps me to open the Visual Studio Code. So for the coding purpose, I'm using the code editor as the Visual Studio Code. You can use whatever the code editor as you wish, because the reason why I choose this, because it comes really handy, because I can install all the necessary extensions for building these applications or a web app or working with React or any other modern frameworks. So in this case, first you need to install this the live server, which helps us to run our HTML projects in the local server instead of deploying directly on the live. But anyways, at the end we're going to deploy it. So you can see we have this extension, so please go ahead and install it. Okay, so as I said, we are not only going to keep push our code on the live server, also we are going to keep our project in the GitHub too. So what we can do is, instead of creating something like this as a profile cards, so let's delete this. So first off, before starting everything, you should download and install this Git. So make sure that you download the Git. So click this Git downloads, and you should download the necessary platform what you're using. In this case, I'm using Mac, so I already installed the Git in this. So if you haven't created any account with the GitHub, so please go ahead and create yourself an account on the GitHub. So it's completely free, so you can choose the free version itself, and you can deploy all by yourselves. It's completely free. All right, so now I logged into my GitHub account, so it's completely free. So feel free to create yourself an account, and it's really important as a web developers or any other programming developers as you are. All right, so let me create a new repository over here. So click this new option, so click it and create a new repository. So in this case, we're going to keep this, you should keep this as a public, but in this case I'm going to keep this as a private. All right, so let's say this as the profile cards UI components, something like this, profile cards UI components. All right, so keep it as a private, and you need to add a readme file. So make sure that you add a readme file, enable this. And for the time being, we don't need the git ignore. The reason why we need this git ignore file is because if you wish to ignore any specific file or any specific file which is need to be protected, and that doesn't need to be uploaded in the open GitHub repository, you should mention that file location in this git ignore, so that will be ignored by the time when you're uploading this file into your cloud repository. Then you can choose a file license. In this case, you can choose this MIT license itself. So choose that MIT license and then create this repository. And there we go. So we have ourselves created the repository along with the license, and this is the readme file which we have created. Later we can customize this particular repository itself. All right, and then you can see we have this URL. Just copy this URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new terminal. Okay, so let me open my terminal over here and let me navigate to the desktop itself. So cd, so right now I'm inside the profile card, so cd space double dot, and let's move into the desktop. Okay, so now let me, I think right now I'm inside the root folder, so let me jump into the desktop folder. All right, so this is the place where I'm going to create a clone of that project. So all I have to do is to say git clone, give that project link, Okay, and if you wish to change the project folder name over here, in this case I'm just going to change this as a profile cards or something like this. All right, so git clone, give that complete URL, and then type this profile cards. So this will help you to install that, download and keep that file in the specific folder. So hit the enter. All right, here we go. So now I have the clone of that project. Where it is? So it should be created now. Where it is? Just a moment. All right, it is in my another screen. So let me bring it over here. There we go. So we have ourselves that profile cards. And now let me open this project in my Visual Studio Code, new terminal. And let me open this project in the Visual Studio Code. And there we go. So now I have this project in my hand. Okay, so every time when we make some changes, we're gonna commit it and we're gonna push it to our GitHub, and later I'm gonna show you how to deploy this project on a live server. All right, so let's get started. So this is the design. As I told you, this is the one which we are going to design right now, right? So in order to create this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new folder over here, and I'm going to name this folder as the card1. All right, and here inside this folder I'm going to create a new folder called public, and inside this public folder I'm going to create a new file called index.html, and inside this public folder I'm going to create a new folder called CSS, and inside this public folder I'm going to create a new folder called images, and inside the public folder I'm going to create a new folder called JavaScript. So these are this is the folder structure, the root folder, and inside that you should have a public, and inside the public you should have all these necessary folders and the index.html. So please make sure you should have only one file outside of it, that should be the index.html, right? This is what that it's need to be. All right, so this is how you need to create the project structure. All right, so let me show you. If you wish to create all the profile cards or all the web components as a separate one, you should follow this folder structure. Your root folder, inside the root folder you should have the public folder, and inside the public folder you should have the index.html and the rest of these folders. All right, so let me delete this one, delete it. All right, so now let's think about it. This is going to be our root folder, right? So we created the repository called profile cards UI components, and that we cloned up over here. So we already have the license and the readme file. So this is going to be our root folder. So I need to drop a new folder over here called public, right? This is the public, and then over here I need to create a new file called index.html. So create a new file, index.html. There we go. Then inside this public folder I'm going to create a new folder called assets, because we know that CSS, JavaScript, images and everything is going to be assets for my web project. So I'm going to create an assets, and inside this assets folder I'm going to create the CSS folder, and over here I'm going to create the JavaScript folder, and over here I'm going to keep the images folders, and so on, the pages, videos, others, audios, whatever the assets that you are going to keep, we can keep everything over here. Then inside this index.html, hit the exclamatory symbol and hit the enter. So this will allows you to generate the boilerplate codes where you can have this default HTML coding which supports the HTML file and the language and the viewports, all these things. All right, so save it and let me give some text, like let's say hi there, save it, and let me run this project on the live server which we have installed. So right click it and open it with the live server. So click this, and that is going to open it in the live server. So here we go. So right now it is running over here, right? So we successfully created the GitHub repository, and we cloned it, and we set up our project folders and locations and everything, and we make sure that it is running locally. Now all we have to do is to make these changes, push it lively to our profile cards. In order to do that, what I need to do is, you can see there is some changes in the git source which we cloned. These are the changes which haven't been pushed to the GitHub. So what I need to do is, all I have to do is to create some necessary files inside the CSS folders and the images folders, as well as what I'm going to do is, inside the CSS folder I'm going to create a new file called styles.css, and inside the JavaScript folder I'm going to create the main.js. So I'm not going to type anything else, just I'm creating some files over here. So inside the images folders, nothing is there. So instead of keeping it as an empty folder, because Git will not push the empty folder on the GitHub repository. So maybe after, if you need to keep any local images in this, we can simply add that folder. Otherwise, right now I'm just going to delete it. All right, so let me get into the Git source. Now we can see all these files are being ready to push to our GitHub folder from our local repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a message. Let's say changes. What we did, we just completed the project setup. So project setup completed. Project setup structure, project structure setup. Let's say project structure setup completed. So committed. Now all the changes, whatever the changes I made in this GitHub repository, it's ready to push. So now the local Git is ready to push all the changes to our cloud. So in order to push all these things, you can see these three dots over here. Click over here, and all you have to do, choose this pull or push option and choose this push to option. Click this, and that will push the file to the origin from where this file is being cloned. And now I can just click this to see the changes. You can see we have the public folder. Inside the public folder, we do have this assets and index.html and all these files. See, changes, project structure setup is completed. It's completely pushed. So we successfully set up our the entire layout structures and everything. And now all we have to do is to go ahead and start designing the web components one after another.